We all know the dream. A struggling artist writes one perfect song and suddenly it's everywhere. It's on the radio every hour, it's in movies, it's the song of the summer, and overnight that artist becomes a superstar. They go from broke to having millions of dollars in the bank, living a life they could only have imagined. It's the ultimate success story. But what happens after the music stops? What happens when that one massive hit is the only one they ever have? For some, that tidal wave of cash and fame is a blessing that sets them up for life. But for many others, it's a curse in disguise. The money comes in so fast that they don't know how to handle it, and just as quickly as it arrived, it disappears. Today, we're looking at the incredible and often tragic stories of 15 one-hit wonders who reached the top of the mountain with a single song, made an absolute fortune, and then, through bad luck, bad decisions, or a bit of both, lost every penny of it. 1. Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby. In 1990, the world was taken over by a simple, catchy bass line and two words, Ice Ice. Robert Van Winkle, known as Vanilla Ice, exploded onto the scene with his mega-hit Ice Ice Baby. The song was the first hip-hop single to ever top the Billboard charts, and it was a global phenomenon. Vanilla Ice was suddenly one of the most famous people on the planet. The money rolled in faster than he could count it. He was making millions upon millions of dollars. So what did he do? He started buying everything he could think of. He bought multiple mansions, a fleet of exotic sports cars and speedboats. He had a huge entourage and spent insane amounts of money on jewelry and wild parties. He believed the success would last forever, but it didn't. His next albums flopped, and the public turned on him. Worse, he hadn't paid attention to the business side. He was sued by Queen and David Bowie for using the bass line from their song Under Pressure, which cost him a huge amount of money in royalties. Weighed down by his ridiculous spending and legal troubles, the millions vanished as quickly as they came. He was left with a collection of things he couldn't afford to maintain and a career that was, for a time, completely frozen over. 2. MC Hammer, You Can't Touch This. With his baggy pants and iconic dance moves, MC Hammer was more than a rapper. He was a cultural phenomenon. His 1990 hit, You Can't Touch This, was inescapable. It played at every party, every school dance, and every sporting event. The album it was on, Please Hammer, Don't Hurt 'Em, sold over 18 million copies, making him one of the biggest stars in the world and earning him an estimated fortune of over $33 million. Hammer's lifestyle quickly became as legendary as his music. He bought a massive custom-built mansion in the hills of California for $12 million, which had its own bowling alley, 2 swimming pools, and a recording studio. But the real cost was his entourage. He believed in sharing his wealth with his community and employed over 200 people with a monthly payroll of over $500,000. He owned 17 racehorses, a private jet, and a fleet of luxury cars. He was spending money at a breathtaking rate, assuming the hits would keep coming. But they didn't. His next albums sold poorly, and soon his monthly expenses were far greater than his income. Buried under the weight of his own generosity and extravagant taste, Hammer declared bankruptcy in 1996, stating he had over $13 million in debt. The man who told the world, "You can't touch this," had a fortune that, it turned out, was very easy to touch and even easier to lose. 3. Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You. In 1990, the world was captivated by a haunting voice and a striking, shaved-headed Irish singer named Sinead O'Connor. Her breathtaking performance of the Prince-penned song Nothing Compares to You became a #1 hit all around the globe. The powerful, emotional music video, featuring a single tear rolling down her cheek, was played constantly on MTV. She became an international superstar and earned millions from the song's success. However, Sinead was never comfortable with the pop star machine. She was a fierce and outspoken artist who cared more about her message than about making money. She famously tore up a picture of the Pope on the live television show Saturday Night Live in 1992 as a protest, a move that effectively destroyed her mainstream career in the United States. Radio stations banned her music, and her record sales plummeted. While she continued to make critically acclaimed music for the rest of her life, she never had another commercial hit on the same scale. She struggled with mental health issues for years, and in interviews she spoke about how the fortune she made from her one big hit was eventually spent on medical treatments and therapy. Her story is a powerful reminder that for some artists, personal conviction is worth more than any amount of money. 4. Billy Ray Cyrus, Achy Breaky Heart. Before he was known as Miley Cyrus's dad, Billy Ray Cyrus was a country music superstar, all thanks to one ridiculously catchy song. In 1992, Achy Breaky Heart was a cultural earthquake. The song was everywhere, and its accompanying line dance became a global craze. The single went multi-platinum, and Billy Ray Cyrus was suddenly a household name with millions in the bank. He was the handsome, mullet-sporting face of country music. But he struggled to follow up on his massive success. He was quickly labeled as a novelty act, a one-hit wonder, and subsequent songs and albums failed to capture the public's imagination in the same way. While he managed his money better than many others on this list, he made a series of business decisions that didn't pan out. He invested in a variety of ventures, but the real financial strain came from trying to maintain the lifestyle of a superstar long after his income had peaked. For years, he was seen as a bit of a musical punchline, the guy who sang that one silly song. Though he later found renewed success as an actor, and with another viral hit, Old Town Road, there was a long period where the man with the achy breaky heart also had an achy breaky bank account. 5. Right Said Fred, I'm Too Sexy. In 1991, two bald brothers in mesh shirts from England stormed the charts with a song that was both incredibly silly and impossibly catchy. Richard and Fred Fairbrass, as the group Right Said Fred, released I'm Too Sexy, and it became a global comedy anthem. The song hit #1 in the United States and dozens of other countries. The brothers became instant millionaires. They were flown around the world, appeared on every major TV show, and lived the high life. They partied with superstars and spent their money freely, believing they had a long career ahead of them. They bought expensive apartments and lived a life of luxury. But the joke that made them famous quickly wore thin. Their follow-up songs failed to chart, and the public moved on. The problem was that they had signed a terrible contract with their record label. They later revealed that despite the song's massive success, they saw very little of the actual profits. Most of the money went to the label and management. What little they did make, they spent quickly, assuming more was on the way. Soon the well dried, and the brothers who were too sexy for their car found themselves struggling to even afford a bus ticket. 6. The Proclaimers, I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles. Scottish twin brothers Craig and Charlie Reid, known as the Proclaimers, released their iconic, foot-stomping anthem I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles in 1988. While it was a hit in the UK, it didn't become a global smash until it was featured in the Johnny Depp movie Benny and June in 1993. Suddenly, the song was a top 10 hit in the United States, and the brothers were earning a fortune from royalties. The song became a permanent fixture at sporting events, in movies, and on TV shows, generating a steady stream of income. However, the brothers were never comfortable with the flashy celebrity lifestyle. They were down-to-earth musicians from a working-class background. They admitted in interviews that when the big checks started coming in, they didn't know what to do with the money. They fell into the classic trap of trusting the wrong people. They handed over their finances to managers and accountants who made a series of terrible investments on their behalf. They lost a significant portion of their fortune in bad business deals. While the enduring popularity of their one massive hit has thankfully kept them from complete ruin, they learned a hard lesson about how quickly millions can be lost when you're not watching your own wallet. 7. T-Paw, Heart and Soul. Led by the fiery redhead singer Carol Decker, the British band T-Paw hit it big in 1987 with their song Heart and Soul. The track, with its catchy stuttering vocal hook, became a top 5 hit in the United States after it was featured in a trendy Pepe Jeans commercial. The band was suddenly on top of the world. Their album went quadruple platinum, and they were living the life of rock stars, making millions of pounds. Carol Decker, as the face of the band, enjoyed the fruits of that success. But the pressure of fame and the non-stop touring schedule caused the band to fall apart. After a few less successful follow-up hits, they broke up at the peak of their fame. Decker tried to launch a solo career, but it never took off. The money from the band's success, which seemed like it would last a lifetime, quickly started to dwindle. She invested poorly and, by her own admission, spent too much trying to maintain a celebrity lifestyle. Within a few years, the millions were gone. At one point, she was so broke she was reportedly signing up for unemployment benefits. The woman who poured her heart and soul into her music was left with a broken band and a broken bank account. 8. Rick Dees, Disco Duck. This is one of the strangest stories in music history. In 1976, at the height of the disco craze, a radio DJ named Rick Dees wrote a silly novelty song called Disco Duck. The song featured a quacking, Donald Duck-like voice singing about disco dancing. It was meant to be a joke, but the public loved it. The song went to number 1 on the Billboard charts and sold millions of copies, earning Dees a fortune. He was suddenly a millionaire recording artist. But there was a huge problem. Dees was a radio DJ in Memphis, and his radio station had a strict policy against its DJs playing their own music. When his song became a hit, his bosses told him he couldn't play it. Then, they told him he couldn't even mention it on air or talk about the fact that he was the artist behind the biggest song in the country. He was eventually fired from his job for talking about the song. At the same time, because he was seen as a joke act, the music industry didn't take him seriously, and he was never able to produce another hit. While he went on to have a legendary career in radio, the massive fortune from his one wacky hit was largely lost to bad investments and the cost of trying to build a music career that never went anywhere. 9. Tony Basil, Mickey. In 1982, a catchy cheerleader-themed pop song called Mickey took over the world. The song, performed by Tony Basil, along with its iconic music video featuring her in a cheerleader outfit, went to number 1 in the U.S. Tony Basil, who was already a successful dancer and choreographer, became a pop star overnight and made millions from the song's success. But her story is a heartbreaking example of how artists can be taken advantage of. She has claimed for years that she has never seen the royalties she was owed for the song. She said in an interview that, despite the song being a global phenomenon and being used in movies, commercials, and TV shows for decades, she received almost no money from it after the initial success. She says that because of confusing contracts and legal loopholes, the profits went to other people. She spent years in legal battles trying to get what she was owed, but the fight drained her financially. The woman who created one of the most memorable and profitable pop songs of the 80s ended up with almost nothing to show for it. 10. Fountains of Wayne, Stacy's Mom. In 2003, the rock band Fountains of Wayne released Stacy's Mom, a fun, power pop anthem about a boy with a crush on his friend's mother. The song was a huge hit, nominated for a Grammy, and its music video was played constantly on MTV. The band, which had been respected by critics for years, was finally a mainstream success. The song brought in a wave of money from sales and licensing. However, the success was a double-edged sword. The band became exclusively known as the Stacy's Mom Guys. They were a talented group of songwriters, but their one massive, slightly goofy hit overshadowed all of their other work. They continued to release albums, but none of their other songs ever received the same level of attention. The influx of cash from their big hit was eventually spent on touring, recording new albums that didn't sell as well, and the general expenses of being a working band. One of the band's members, Adam Scheslinger, who tragically passed away in 2020, had spoken about how the money from a single hit song doesn't last forever, especially when it's split 4 ways and has to fund the band's future. 11. Sir Mix-a-Lot, Baby Got Back. I like big butts and I cannot lie. With that one legendary line, Sir Mix-a-Lot became a household name in 1992. His song, Baby Got Back, was a cultural reset. It was a funny, provocative, and incredibly popular anthem that shot to #1 and stayed there for 5 weeks. The song made him a multi-millionaire. He invested his money wisely at first, particularly in the booming tech scene in his native Seattle. However, his lavish spending eventually caught up with him. He bought mansions, expensive cars, and lived the life of a rap superstar. He also made some disastrous business decisions. His biggest mistake was trying to launch his own record label. He poured his own money into the project, hoping to discover the next big star. But the label was a complete failure and ended up being a financial black hole that consumed a huge chunk of his fortune. While the song is still incredibly popular today and provides him with a comfortable income, he has admitted that the vast wealth he initially earned was squandered on bad business ventures. 12. Dexy's Midnight Runners, Come On Eileen. In 1982, a British band with a unique, soulful sound and a scruffy working-class image hit #1 all over the world with Come On Eileen. Dexy's Midnight Runners, led by the intense Kevin Rowland, created an unforgettable anthem that made them instant stars and millionaires. But Rowland was a difficult and uncompromising artist. He hated the idea of fame and refused to play the pop star game. After their massive success, he changed the band's image and musical style completely, alienating many of their newfound fans. The band's follow-up album was a commercial disaster. Soon after, the band fell apart. Kevin Rowland's life spiraled downwards. He developed a serious drug addiction that consumed all of the money he had made from his one giant hit. He spent years in a downward spiral, and by the late 1990s, he was completely broke and had to declare bankruptcy. His is a cautionary tale of an artist who flew too close to the sun and, unable to handle the pressure, lost everything. 13. Terry Jacks, The Seasons in the Sun. In 1974, a Canadian singer named Terry Jacks released a song that became one of the biggest-selling singles of all time, The Seasons in the Sun, a sad, sentimental song about a dying man saying goodbye to his loved ones, struck a chord with the public and sold over 10 million copies worldwide. Terry Jacks became an overnight multi-millionaire. The money was so immense that he decided he didn't need to work in the music industry anymore. He took his fortune and decided to live a quiet life, investing in various businesses. However, he admitted later that he was too trusting and naive. He poured his money into ventures that failed spectacularly, losing millions. He also went through a difficult divorce that was a significant financial drain. The man who sang one of the most successful songs in history found that his fortune, much like the seasons, eventually came to an end. 14. Bobby McFerrin, Don't Worry, Be Happy. In 1988, a song with no instruments, created entirely by the human voice, became a #1 hit and a global philosophy. Bobby McFerrin's Don't Worry, Be Happy was a phenomenon. The simple, cheerful tune made him a star and earned him a fortune. However, McFerrin was a serious and respected jazz musician, and he quickly grew to hate the song. He felt it was a novelty that overshadowed his real artistic work. He got tired of people yelling, "Don't worry, be happy," at him in the street. So he made a conscious decision to walk away from it. He stopped performing the song and stepped out of the pop spotlight to focus on his true passions, like classical conducting and jazz improvisation. While he didn't lose his money through bad spending, he effectively turned his back on the commercial machine that could have made him even wealthier. He chose his art over his one big hit, and while his bank account may have suffered for it, his artistic soul remained intact. 15. Lou Bega, Mambo No. 5. In the summer of 1999, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing about a little bit of Monica, Erica, Rita, and Tina. German singer Lou Bega's Mambo No. 5 was an absolute monster hit. The song, with its retro mambo beat and roll call of ladies' names, was #1 in over a dozen countries and made Bega an international celebrity with millions in his pocket. He lived the superstar life, touring the world and enjoying the success. But the song's success was also the source of his financial downfall. The catchy trumpet melody that made the song so famous was sampled from an original 1949 mambo instrumental by a Cuban musician named Perez Prado. Bega was eventually sued by the Prado estate. The legal battle was long and incredibly expensive, and in the end, a German court ruled that Bega was only a co-writer of the song. He was forced to give up a huge percentage of all past and future royalties from his one and only hit. The massive legal fees and the loss of his biggest source of income effectively wiped out the fortune he had made. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you never miss an update. We'll see you in the next one.